My whole life I believed family was a fortress. The Miller family. My father, Harold, with his booming laugh that could fill a room. My mother, Carol, the master planner of every holiday and Sunday dinner. My older brother, David, the golden child, the successful lawyer who could do no wrong. And me, Agnes, the dependable one. The one who stayed close to home, who managed my parents' finances after Dad's retirement, who organized Mom's medication, who remembered every birthday and anniversary. I was the glue, and I loved my job. The fortress walls began to crack with a single phone call. Dad, his voice slurred. "Aggie," the bank called, "there's nothing left." The Miller Family Trust, built from my grandparents' life savings and my parents' careful work, was gone, evaporated. A series of massive, secretive withdrawals over the last 6 months had zeroed it out. My blood ran cold. I was the one who monitored that account. How had I missed this? I called an emergency, family meeting. The air in my parents' living room was thick with panic and accusation. "I don't understand, Agnes," my mother said, her voice trembling. "You're the one who handles all this. How could you let this happen?" "I didn't let anything happen, Mom. I didn't make these withdrawals. Look at the statements." I spread the papers on the coffee table. The transfers were to an offshore numbered company. They were digital, sophisticated. David, in his sharpest lawyer voice, cut in. "Agnes, who else had access? You have the login credentials. You have the security tokens. This looks deliberate." The word hung in the air. Deliberate. They weren't just asking, they were suspecting. Their eyes, my own family's eyes, were looking at me not with concern, but with a dawning, horrifying suspicion. "I would never," my voice broke. "Why would I steal from my own family?" "Money makes people do strange things," David said coolly. "Maybe that little art gallery you wanted to open wasn't just a dream." I felt the world tilt. My dream, the thing I'd whispered to them in confidence, was now being used as evidence against me. The glue was no longer holding the family together. It was trapping me. The final blow came the next day. David had done some digging. He presented evidence to my parents, a fake email from the gallery landlord discussing my investment, a doctored text message where I supposedly confessed financial stress to a friend. They were flimsy forgeries, but my family, in their panic, wanted a villain, and I was the most convenient one. My mother looked at me, her face a mask of betrayal. "I want you to leave, Agnes, and I want you to give David power of attorney over our affairs immediately. We can't trust you anymore." The fortress doors slammed shut in my face. I was exiled. The weeks that followed were a blur of grief and rage. I moved into a friend's spare room, a shell of my former self. The pain wasn't just financial or logistical, it was existential. If my own family could turn on me so completely, what was the point of anything? But a fire began to burn in the ashes of my heart. It wasn't enough to be innocent. I had to prove it, and I had to make them see. The key was the data, the bank transfers. I may not have been a lawyer like David, but I was meticulous. I spent days cross-referencing the withdrawal dates, and I found a pattern. Every single one coincided with a day David had come over to help Dad with some tech issues. David, who had always been dismissively bad with computers. It was him. The realization was a physical blow. My own brother. The golden child, not just taking the money, but framing me for it. He wasn't just greedy, he was a coward. He needed a scapegoat, and the dependable, quiet sister was the perfect candidate. But proving it would take more than a pattern. I needed to become a ghost. I needed to vanish from their lives so completely that they would forget to guard their lies against me. I changed my number. I deleted my social media. I became a non-person. I took a job as a bookkeeper under the table, bidding my time, saving every penny. I learned everything I could about digital forensics and offshore corporate trails. My quiet, meticulous nature, once used for organizing family events, was now weaponized for a single purpose: justice. 6 months later, I knew it was time. It was my mother's birthday, the annual family gala at my parents' house, a show of unity, the perfect stage for my return. I didn't ring the doorbell, I just walked in. The conversation died instantly. They were all there. Mom, Dad, David, his wife. They looked at me as if I were a specter. "Agnes," my father whispered. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for the truth," I said, my voice steady, though my hands trembled. I held up a USB drive. "It's all on here. The IP addresses linked to the offshore transfers, traced back to David's law firm's private server. The keylogger history from Dad's computer showing David's activity during every single withdrawal. The fake email and text forgeries, with their digital fingerprints leading right back to his devices." David shot to his feet, his face purple. "This is nonsense, more of her lies." "Are you sure, David?" I said, my gaze locking with his. "Do you remember the name of the shell company? Midas Holdings. You were always so fond of that story, and the password you used to access the account. Golden Boy 123. A little on the nose, don't you think?" The blood drained from his face. The specific details were a knife to his fabricated reality. I turned to my parents. Their faces were a torturous canvas of confusion and dawning horror. "He didn't just steal your money," I said, my voice soft but cutting. "He stole your faith in me. He sold you a story where I was the villain because he knew I was the only one who would ever have the integrity to catch him. You chose the easy lie over the difficult daughter." I placed the USB drive on the dining room table, next to my mother's untouched birthday cake. "The police and the DA have copies. They'll be here soon." I looked at my brother one last time. "You were right about one thing, David. Money does make people do strange things. It made you destroy your own family. I just provided the evidence." I turned and walked out, leaving the ruins of our family fortress behind me. The glue was gone, and the fragile pieces were finally, truly broken. I used a small portion of the recovered funds to finally open my art gallery. It's a quiet, bright space. I'm no longer the glue for a broken family. I'm the curator of my own life. My parents try to call sometimes. The conversations are strained, filled with a grief that may never heal. The truth was a poison, but it was the antidote to the lie I had been living. The family I thought was my fortress was really just a house of cards. And when it fell, I discovered I wasn't buried in the rubble. I was standing on solid ground for the first time. The silence in the wake of my words was more deafening than any scream. I didn't wait for the storm to break. I turned and walked out of my parents' house, the click of the front door echoing with a finality that shook my very bones. I didn't run. I walked to my car, got in, and drove away, my hands steady on the wheel. There were no tears. I was done crying for them. The fallout was swift and played out in texts and voicemails that I let go to a separate folder, a digital quarantine for my own sanity. First, my mother, her voice a ragged wound. "Agnes, please. He's confessing everything. Your father is. I can't breathe. We were so wrong. Please, we need you. Come home." Then my father, the boom gone from his voice, replaced by a hollow tremor. "Baby girl, I don't know what to say. How could I have let him? How could I have doubted you? The police are here. It's a nightmare." And David, one single venomous message. "You ruined everything, you selfish bitch. I hope you're happy." Happy? No, I was numb. I was free. The legal proceedings were a slow, grinding machine. David, with his lawyer's cunning, tried to fight, but the evidence was irrefutable. The digital trail was a neon sign pointing directly to him. He pleaded guilty to embezzlement and forgery just before the trial was set to begin, a last-ditch effort to avoid a more public spectacle. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. My parents, stripped of their savings and their illusions, were left in a barren landscape of their own making. They tried to reach out, to bridge a chasm that was now a mile wide and infinitely deep. They came to my tiny apartment once. My mother's eyes were permanently red-rimmed. My father had aged a decade in a few months. "We want to make it right, Agnes," my father pleaded, his hands shaking. "We'll sign over the house to you, whatever is left." I shook my head, my heart a cold, hard stone in my chest. "I don't want your house. I never wanted your money. I just wanted you to believe me." The words hung there, the truth of them an unbreachable wall between us. There was no making it right. You can't unbreak a vase. You can only sweep up the pieces and decide if you're going to keep them. I had already thrown my pieces away. A year later, on a crisp autumn day, I stood in a sun-drenched room that smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Verita's Gallery. The name was etched on the window in elegant, simple lettering. My life's dream, no longer whispered, but declared to the world. The opening night was bustling. Friends, local artists, and curious patrons filled the space, their chatter a warm, lively hum. I was talking to a young sculptor when I felt a presence at the edge of the room. They stood there, just inside the door, looking frail and out of place. My parents. They didn't approach, just watched me with a mixture of profound sorrow and a desperate, flickering pride. For a long moment, I held my mother's gaze across the room. I saw the ghost of every birthday card she'd ever signed, every bandaged knee, every late-night talk. And I saw the shadow of the woman who had so easily exiled her own daughter. I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't forgiveness. That river had run dry. It was an acknowledgement. A silent message: I see you, I am alive, I am thriving, and I am doing it without you. I then turned my back to them, fully and completely, and walked over to Leo, my friend who had stood by me through it all, and handed him a fresh glass of wine. I laughed at something he said, the sound genuine and light. When I glanced back toward the door a few minutes later, they were gone. They were a chapter I had finally, painstakingly, closed. The family I thought was my fortress had crumbled, and in its place I hadn't built another one. Fortresses can be besieged. They can be betrayed. Instead, I had built a gallery, a place of light and truth and beauty, a sanctuary of my own making. And as I looked around at the art on the walls and the friends who filled the room, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that I was finally home. The best revenge wasn't hatred. It was this profound, unshakable peace. I had not just survived them turning against me. I had become someone they could never, ever hurt again.